Okay, so we're now going to talk about official languages and official language adoption. So the definition for official language is, in multilingual countries, the language selected, often by the educated and politically powerful elite, to promote internal cohesion, usually the language of the courts and the government. So important to know, it's when we talk about official language, it's a language that has been selected, and it is selected by the leadership, and it's selected by the leadership in a country where there are many different languages being spoken, and there needs to be some sort of internal cohesion so that people can understand each other. So, we're going to look at official language adoption first in three case studies. So, the first three case studies we're going to talk about are Peru, Nigeria, and India. In Peru, you can see in the map on the far left where the cursor is right now. So you see how there are many, many, many different indigenous languages in Peru. We can also see from the Nigeria map that there are hundreds of different languages, and these are even in different language families. So we see here we have Hausa, Iba, Yoruba, Tiv. These are some of the major language families, but there's even a bunch of other ones that aren't mentioned on this map. Here we have in India, we can see these are major language families. And within each language family, for example, within the Indo-European family, we have Hindi, we have Rajasthani, we have Gujarati. Now, those are separate languages. Even though they're in the same language family, they're not the same language. Just like English and German are in the same language family, but are not the same language. Here in the South, it's a different language family, and in the North, we have Sino-Tibetan language family. So all three of these are very linguistically diverse countries, and so official language adoption became important. So, what is the official language of Peru? Well, the official language of Peru is Spanish. Spanish is the official national language. However, Quechua and other indigenous languages have official status in certain regions of Peru. So, Quechua is the most commonly spoken language in Peru besides Spanish, and it's the number one mother tongue. And so, therefore, it has been given official status in certain regions of Peru. Now, in Nigeria, English is the official language. Now, it's official, but really it's only spoken by the elite, by rich people, by educated people, and most people speak their own local languages in the various regions that they live. So these are some of those regions: the Igbo and Yoruba south, and the Hausa north. Okay, now in India, India is the most complicated, and the reason is this. India has Hindi and English as the two national official languages. However, each state in India has its own official language, aside from the national language. So down here, for example, in the state of Tamil Nadu, the official language is Tamil, which is a totally different language than English or Hindi. Um, and so that's the official state language. And then you have the official national language, which is Hindi as well as English. Some of the states in the north have Hindi as their state language and as their national language. Why did these three countries choose these languages? Well, there's something in common with all three. Spanish was the language of colonization, and so Peru was colonized by Spain, and therefore they held on to and adapted the language of the colonizer. The reason that they promoted Amerindian languages or the native languages like Quechua in certain regions of Peru is in order to promote ethnic equality and give legitimacy and respect to those languages and those cultures. Now, in Nigeria, similar to Peru, it's the English being the language of colonization, and the reason it was chosen is because you see how there's so many different groups. There was a power struggle for which the official language would be, and therefore they decided instead of choosing Yoruba or Igbo or Hausa, they would choose English so that no one group would become dominant. Now, in India, the reason that English and Hindi were chosen is, well, as in the case of the other two, English was the language of the colonizer, so the English colonized India, and Hindi is also the dominant language of the North, and it has the most speakers in terms of numbers. It's also where Delhi is where the capital of India is, and so it was chosen as the other official languages. Now, moving forward to a more general question on all three of these countries, but also applying to other countries that we haven't talked about. Why do countries choose official languages? Well, some basic reasons. These are more general, less specific than on the last slide. So one general reason is in order to promote communication in a multilingual state. When everyone speaks a different local language, no one can talk to each other. It's very difficult to run a state that way, run a country. And when two groups don't speak the same language, they won't interact. But when you have an official language, it really does increase interaction between different ethnic groups, brings the state together. It also increases integration into the global economy. So if everyone in your country learns English or Spanish, then they are much more prepared to integrate into the global economy because they speak one of these dominant worldwide lingua francas like English and like Spanish. The next question is what are some positives of official language adoption? Well, one big positive and the reason why the governments of these states adopt an official language is for more national cohesion and for increased communication. So with a unified language, you have more communication and it creates more of a sense of unity. And so you have increased national identity and pride, and increased international communication and trade. So as the official language is promoted, more and more people identify with the country itself instead of only with their ethnic group. And as more and more people learn these important lingua francas, they are able to integrate international communication and trade. In the case of Peru, you grant more power for minority groups like Quechua speakers by granting their language official status. This leads us to some of the negatives of adopting an official language. Well, for one, it's in all three of our case studies, the language adopted is the language of the colonists. So it brings back negative memories of a colonial legacy. So the three examples we have were Peru with the Spanish colonization, Nigeria with colonization by England, as well as India with colonization by England. Another negative aspect is loss of local languages. So some of the local languages become extinct as there's less of a reason for young people to learn them, as instead they are learning the official language of the country and leaving the local languages to become extinct. Additionally, certain groups gain privilege and have access to power because they are native speakers of that language. So a native speaker of Spanish in Peru is going to have more access to power, and the official language adoption helps to keep certain groups privileged over others and maintain social hierarchies. And if you forget what social hierarchies are, if you remember the triangles where you have certain ethnic groups or people of certain status ranked above others, official language adoption can actually help keep certain groups in power and other groups oppressed. That's the end of the lecture. Don't forget to rewind if you need to, and go ahead and write down some questions to bring to class on Friday.